My name is Helen Griffin, and I was 28 years old when everything quietly cracked open beneath me. If you had asked anyone who knew me back then, they would have said I was the reliable one. Solid career, calm temper, steady routines, the kind of woman who kept her promises even when nobody was watching. I wasn't flashy or dramatic. I wasn't chasing trends or adrenaline. I built my life slowly, brick by brick, believing stability was something sacred. And for 5 years, I thought I was building that life with Leslie Rowe. We met in college, me buried in my engineering workload, him all bright energy in the marketing department. He used to joke that I was the reason he learned self-discipline. I used to say he reminded me that the world was bigger than my deadlines. It felt balanced, complementary. At least that's what I told myself. After graduation, he hit a bad stretch. Lost his first job in a downsizing wave. Spent months couchbound, depressed, doubting himself. I covered our rent, helped with resumes, cooked dinner, encouraged him through every rejection. When he asked me not to take a better paying job out of state because we were a team, I stayed. I don't regret it back then. He felt like home. 5 years later, we were in a downtown apartment with soft lighting and mismatched furniture we swore we'd eventually replace. I worked long hours as a project manager, juggling deadlines, people, budgets. Leslie's marketing career finally took off. Team building retreats, networking events, happy hours, endless opportunities. He called it career growth. I called it distance. Still, I didn't want to be the jealous girlfriend. I trusted him even when odd little things started piling up. The late nights that didn't match his calendar. The way he'd laugh at a message and angle his phone away when I glanced over. When I'd ask if everything was okay, he'd kiss my forehead and say, "Just work stuff, Helen. Don't worry." And I didn't, or tried not to, but doubt doesn't explode, it seeps. It happened on a Thursday night. He left his phone charging on the counter while he showered. A notification blinked across the lock screen. A name I recognized but never thought twice about. Jasmine. Work. The preview last night was fun, still thinking about that kiss. My stomach clenched. I knew I shouldn't tap the screen, but my hands moved before my mind formed the excuse. The messages were right there. Photos from an office party Leslie claimed had been low-key. Shots of him and Jasmine arms wrapped around each other, faces way too close. More texts, flirty jokes inside references talk about getting drinks alone next time. This wasn't confusion, this wasn't a slip, this was a pattern. When he came out of the shower, humming towel around his waist, I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I just held up the phone. "Leslie," I said, "what is this?" For a moment, guilt flashed across his face, just a flicker, but I caught it. Then he let out a sigh, annoyed, as if I'd stopped him from finishing a movie. "Oh my God, Helen, you're overreacting. It was just a kiss. Jasmine was drunk. Everyone was drunk. It didn't mean anything." I stared at him, waiting for regret. None came. "You're acting like I cheated," he added, crossing his arms. "This is harmless. People flirt at work all the time. It's networking." "Networking," I repeated, feeling something in my chest twist. "Yeah. And honestly, your jealousy is suffocating. Jasmine understands ambition. Energy. She actually gets my world. He waved a hand dismissively. You're safe, predictable." The word landed like a slap. Safe. After 5 years of supporting him through everything, he downgraded me to furniture. Something useful, but boring. But the strangest thing happened. Instead of shattering, I went still. Quiet. Cold. "If that's how you feel," I said, "then I hear you." He squinted. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm not arguing." That's when he faltered just slightly because he expected drama, not calm. Expected tears begging fights. Instead, he got silence. He huffed, irritable. "You know what? Maybe we need a break." "A break," I repeated. "Yeah. I need space. I need someone who matches me, not someone who drags me back into routine. Jasmine pushes me. You stay in the same place forever." I didn't flinch. "Then take your space." "Seriously, that's it. You're not going to fight for us." "Why would I fight for someone who already left?" His mouth opened, closed, then curled in offense. "Wow. If you're going to be petty, fine. I'll crash at a friend's. You need time to cool off." He packed in under 10 minutes, slamming drawers for emphasis. Before he walked out, he tossed one last line over his shoulder. "You'll regret this, Helen. No one else will put up with your boring life." The door shut. The silence that followed wasn't painful. It felt like air after being underwater too long. The first thing I did, call a locksmith and change the locks before I could talk myself out of it. Then I blocked his number, not from bitterness but clarity. If he wanted excitement, he could chase it without pulling me along like a spare tire. The next few days were a strange blur. I woke up reaching for someone who wasn't there, then remembering why. I journaled more than I ever had. Hit the gym before work. Started browsing job listings for the position I once rejected because he asked me to stay. And for a little while it was quiet, almost peaceful. But peace, I'd learn, is always temporary. Because Leslie wasn't finished with me, not even close. For about 10 days I lived inside a strange calm, like the quiet after a storm, when the air feels heavy because another one is coming. I didn't know exactly what would break the silence, but some part of me sensed it. It started with a message I never should have received. His name appeared on my screen even though I'd blocked his number. A new number. Same desperation. "Hey, can we talk? I miss you." I stared at it for a full minute before deleting it. No reply, not even anger, just a quiet exhale and an unspoken, "Of course, here we go." What I didn't know was that his world had already begun collapsing long before he typed that text. I found out the details through friends, people who didn't bring me gossip to entertain me, but because they thought I deserved the truth. Turns out Jasmine never wanted Leslie. She wanted leverage. She'd flirted with half the team for months, but Leslie was the easiest target, eager, insecure, hungry for validation. She dangled attention over him like bait. He bragged about their connection, thinking I was the one holding him back from success. Then the project that needed him wrapped up. She got what she needed. And just like that, she dumped him. Via text. Fun while it lasted. Let's keep things professional. Worse. Their private conversations weren't private. Someone in the office leaked screenshots of the flirty messages. Turns out Jasmine wasn't exclusive with her manipulations. HR got involved, and Leslie's shiny marketing trajectory plummeted into a disciplinary meeting and a demotion. He tried to recover by moving in with Jasmine, yes, seriously, but that lasted about a week. They fought constantly, and she kicked him out after he accused her of leading him on. He ended up sleeping on a coworker's couch, scrolling through job boards with no money for rent. I didn't celebrate any of this, not because I was noble, but because I'd spent 5 years giving him grace. The fallout didn't make me feel vindicated. It just made me tired. But Leslie didn't interpret silence as closure. He took it as invitation. The next attempt was a call while I was at work. I didn't answer, but he left a voicemail. "Helen, please. Can we talk? I messed up. Jasmine, she wasn't who I thought she was. She's manipulative and she's got issues. I should have listened to you. Please pick up." I listened once, deleted it, and went back to my spreadsheets. Then came the email. Subject, "I'm sorry." Body paragraphs of half apologies, half blame. He insisted it was one drunk kiss, then contradicted himself, admitting it happened more than once but never meant anything. Then he wrote that I overreacted and threw away something good. That part made me laugh, but not in a happy way. Still, I didn't answer. Silence, however, only made him escalate. He enlisted allies. First was Miles, his best friend, someone who used to be neutral, but apparently chose a side very quickly. "Helen," he texted Leslie's, "a wreck. He knows he messed up. Don't be cold. Give him another chance." I ignored him. Then came Erin, Leslie's sister. We'd never been close, but she called me from out of town. "You know he's dramatic," she said, sighing heavily into the phone. "That coworker thing was stupid, but it's not the end of the world. Don't just abandon him when he needs you." "Erin," I said calmly, "he abandoned me while we were still together." "Well, sure," she replied, "but that was just a phase. You were always the mature one. Can't you just help him get back on track?" "No," I said and hung up. Then came Leslie's father, Mr. Rowe, a man who'd always been polite to me but never quite warm. His email was dripping in guilt. "You were like a daughter to us. Leslie knows he made a mistake. Please don't give up on him during this difficult time." Difficult time, he created it. That was the point when I broke my silence, not to Leslie, but to all of them. I wrote one group email with a single line, "Please respect my space. This relationship is over." Then I blocked them all. For a few days, things went quiet again, almost peaceful. I kept showing up to work, started a new morning routine, began applying for a job I had once rejected for Leslie's sake, treated myself to small things, fresh-cut flowers, a new coffee shop, long showers, quiet dinners. But toxic people don't let peace last long. More voicemails came from burner numbers each time. I didn't pick up, but I listened in case they were emergencies. They were never emergencies, just desperation wearing different masks. "Helen, please. I'm scared. I can't afford rent." The demotion hit hard. "I need help. You always helped me." Then later, "You're being cruel. After everything I gave you, I was confused. Jasmine manipulated me. You're punishing me too much." Then eventually, You're heartless. You think you're better than me just because your life isn't falling apart? You'll regret this. It was bizarre hearing him cycle from pleading to blaming to begging again, like he couldn't decide which role to play to make me come back. But the truth, I was done playing roles with him. With each message, his voice sounded less like someone I loved and more like someone I used to know, someone who had drained me for years without even realizing it. The final push, the thing that shifted something deep in me, wasn't the rage or the guilt trips or the begging. It was one quiet night around 11 p.m. when I was brushing my teeth and heard a heavy thud against my door. Then another. Then rapid knocking. When I looked through the peephole, Leslie was standing there, disheveled, red-eyed, breathing hard. He muttered my name over and over. Helen opened the door. "Please, I need to talk to you." He kept knocking louder each time. His voice cracked. At one point, he pressed his forehead against the door and whispered something like, "Don't leave me alone." But I didn't open, not even for a second. I stepped back, locked the chain, and called building security. While they escorted him out, I stood in my kitchen and waited for fear to rise. It didn't. Nothing rose. That's when I realized something profound. I didn't love him anymore. I didn't even hate him. He had simply become irrelevant. And the woman I was turning into the one who protected her peace, who expected respect, who didn't beg for crumbs, wasn't someone he recognized. I wasn't the woman he remembered. I wasn't the woman he had walked over. I was someone new. Healing looks different when you're forced into it. Some people scream, some spiral. Some try to glue the broken pieces back together as if pretending hard enough will undo the damage. Me, I rebuilt quietly. After the night, Leslie pounded on my door. Something shifted. Not dramatic or cinematic, just subtle like a gear sliding into the right place after years of grinding wrong. I woke up the next morning and didn't check my phone for messages. I didn't replay old conversations in my head. I didn't look for closure. I simply went on with my day. And strangely, that was the first time in a long time that my life felt like mine again. I started with my routines. The gym became a sanctuary early mornings. When the city was still half asleep, machines humming, weights clinking, no expectations except to breathe and move. Each workout felt like wringing poison from my muscles. Each morning run felt like reclaiming a piece of myself Leslie never bothered to know. Therapy helped too. I booked my first session hesitant, unsure if I needed it, but after talking for an hour straight without stopping, I realized I'd been carrying a 5-year weight I never admitted was heavy. My therapist didn't tell me things I didn't already know. She just held up a mirror I'd avoided. "You were loyal," she said, and he became comfortable with taking. There was no blame, no judgment, just truth. A simple truth that made breathing easier. Work became another anchor. I didn't realize how many opportunities I had turned down, projects, leadership roles, trainings, because Leslie wanted weekends free or needed me at home. Without his needs dictating my schedule, I suddenly felt expansive, like my life had corners I hadn't explored. Around that time, I began noticing Daniel. He worked in another department, quiet kind, thoughtful in a way that didn't perform. He wasn't flashy, but he was steady, attentive. The first time he asked if I wanted to grab lunch sometime, I almost said no, out of habit. I wasn't used to someone being interested in me without needing something from me. But I said yes. Lunch turned into coffee. Coffee turned into walks around the block after work. Walks turned into easy conversations about childhood books, music, the way he hated small talk, but loved late-night documentaries. He didn't push, didn't pry, didn't expect anything from me. He didn't compare or complain. He didn't need fixing. It felt unfamiliar. It felt safe. Safe in a good way. Safe like steady hands, like warm lights on a rainy night, like someone who listens because they want to, not because they want an advantage. I didn't call it dating at first, just breathing next to someone who didn't suffocate me. Meanwhile, Leslie's attempts didn't stop. They only grew more frantic as my silence deepened. Blocked numbers. Burner phones, emails under different usernames. Some were begging. "Helen, please, I know I messed up. I can't sleep. I can't think I need you." Some were apologizing. "I swear I didn't mean to hurt you." Jasmine messed with my head. "I miss what we had." Some were angry. "You think you're better than me now? Acting cold like this, after everything I gave you." Some were manipulative. "I'm scared. I have nowhere to go. Can you help just this once?" Every message felt like déjà vu. His emotions always shifting, never settling. Always using whatever tone gave him the best chance of getting what he wanted. But none of it pierced me anymore. His voice no longer sounded like home, it sounded like a stranger mimicking history. Still, I knew I had to anchor myself even deeper into my new life, so I pushed forward. I applied for the job I once turned down, the one out of state. I didn't know if I'd take it if offered, but I needed to remind myself that choices were mine again. I decluttered the apartment, donated old things, repainted the bedroom, bought new sheets that didn't remind me of him. It wasn't an erasure, it was an exhale, a reset. Every small change told my brain, you're allowed to move on. And I did. Piece by piece, I rebuilt. But rebuilding doesn't mean the past leaves quietly. It rarely does. It was a Friday evening when Leslie reached his peak. I'd just come home from work, kicked off my shoes, set my bag down, and was deciding whether to cook or order takeout when a sharp, forceful knock hit my door. Not the knock of a delivery person, the knock of someone demanding attention. I felt the familiar tightness in my stomach, but it wasn't fear, it was irritation. A tired, weary annoyance that this man still believed he had access to my life. I walked slowly to the door, looked through the peephole, and sighed. Leslie, again, but worse. His clothes were wrinkled hair, wild eyes, red and frantic. He looked thinner, like stress had gnawed at him. He pressed his palms flat against the door, breathing heavily. Helen, he said, voice cracking. Please, please open the door. He knocked again louder, then again faster. Then he leaned his forehead against the wood. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. Jasmine, everything was a lie. She used me. I didn't see it. I need you. You're the only person who ever cared about me. I didn't move, didn't respond, didn't even blink. He kept talking, rambling, crying, repeating pleas and promises and apologies that blurred together. At one point, he choked out something like, I don't have anyone else, but the words didn't tug at me like they once might have. They just felt empty, familiar. 10 minutes in, I called building security, quietly, calmly. By the time they arrived and escorted him out, his voice had gone from pleading to angry to pleading again. But I didn't watch. I didn't open the door. I stood in my kitchen, hands on the counter, and waited for my heart to react. It didn't. No shaking, no panic, no longing, just nothing. And that nothing was powerful. That's when I knew with absolute certainty that I had crossed a threshold. I wasn't the same woman who begged for his attention. I wasn't the one who absorbed his excuses, soothed his insecurity, sacrificed my ambitions so he'd feel supported. That woman had vanished the moment he chose excitement over loyalty, the moment he kissed someone else and blamed me for it, the moment he called me boring, the moment I realized I didn't need to prove my worth to someone who never saw it. I wasn't just moving on, I had already moved on. Leslie just hadn't realized it yet. Tom's birthday party was the kind of event I would have avoided a few months earlier. Crowded bar, overlapping friend groups. The possibility, no, the near certainty of running into people tangled in my past. But I wasn't the same woman anymore, and avoidance wasn't part of the new life I was building. So when Tom messaged Hope you'll come, it's been a while, I said yes. And when Daniel asked if I wanted company, I said yes to that too. The night of the party, I stood in front of my closet longer than usual, not because I wanted to impress anyone, but because I wanted to feel like myself. Eventually, I chose something simple, black jeans, a fitted top, a soft blazer, clean, confident lines. No drama, no statement, just me. When Daniel arrived at my door, he gave me a small smile, the kind that didn't demand anything, just appreciated what he saw. You ready more than you know, I said. The bar was warm lit and loud with chatter. String lights woven across the ceiling, music pulsing like a steady heartbeat. Familiar faces greeted me, some surprised, some relieved, some simply glad I wasn't a ghost. Tom hugged me, clapped Daniel on the shoulder, then shouted something about shots that I pretended not to hear. It was easy enough to blend into the crowd, sip my drink, enjoy the conversations. For the first time in months, I felt normal, not recovering, not rebuilding, just living. But every peaceful moment carries a shadow, and mine appeared at exactly 9:13 p.m. Daniel had stepped away to greet a coworker when the crowd thinned just enough for me to see Leslie across the bar. My breath didn't hitch, my hands didn't shake. Instead, my first thought was oddly objective. He looks different. He really did. Thinner, pale, eyes carrying months of sleeplessness, clothes wrinkled hair, unstyled posture worn down like someone who had spent too long leaning on walls that couldn't hold him up. He wasn't the Leslie I once loved. He wasn't even the Leslie who betrayed me. He was someone entirely new, someone life had chewed up and spit out. He spotted me almost instantly. His whole body jolted like he'd seen a ghost. Then he started pushing through the crowd, ignoring people he nearly elbowed aside. I didn't move. I didn't run. I simply stood there with my drink heart steady. When he reached me, he didn't say hello. He didn't breathe. He just stared, devouring every detail of who I'd become. "Helen," he said, voice shaking. "Thank God. I've been trying to reach you. I didn't bother pretending confusion. I know. Can we talk, just us?" He glanced over his shoulder, trying to find a corner, a private place where he could spin the narrative again. "Please. 5 minutes." "Here is fine," I said. Calm, flat, unmoved. He hesitated, eyes flickering, when he saw Daniel returning. He tried to ignore him, but the presence of another man seemed to tighten his grip on desperation. "Who is he?" Leslie muttered. "A friend," I said. "Someone who respects boundaries." He flinched. Daniel approached, but didn't interrupt. He simply rested a hand gently on the back of my arm. Not claiming me, just anchoring me, letting me decide. Leslie swallowed, then turned fully toward me. "Look, I know I messed up," he started. "I know the whole thing with Jasmine was stupid. She was drunk. I was drunk, everything spiraled because I felt stuck, that's all. I wasn't thinking straight." "Which part?" I asked. "The part where you kissed her, or the part where you told me I was boring?" His jaw tightened. "I said things I didn't mean. I was confused. I thought excitement meant something important. But she destroyed my life, Helen. She used me. She lied. She made me think." I cut in softly. "No, she didn't make you do anything. You made choices." He blinked rapidly like he hadn't expected that. "But I need you," he said, voice cracking. "You were my stability, my home. You always fixed everything. Please, just give me another chance. I can change. I swear I can change." People nearby had gone quiet. Not staring, but listening with the kind of subtle attention everyone has at parties when something real is happening. I lifted my drink, took a slow sip. Then I met his eyes. "You don't need me," I said. "You need a safety net, and I'm not that anymore." He reached for my arm. Daniel stepped forward instantly, not aggressively, just enough to remind Leslie that I wasn't alone. Leslie's face crumpled. Panic, anger, envy, regret, they all flickered across him like storm clouds rolling too fast to track. "So that's it," he whispered. "You're just done." "Yes," I said simply. "I was done the night you said I'd regret letting you go. I was angry I didn't mean—" "No," I said quietly. "You meant it. You just didn't expect me to believe you." His mouth opened, then trembled shut. For a moment, his facade slipped entirely. He didn't look like someone fighting for love. He looked like someone fighting to avoid the consequences of his own choices. "You called me boring," I said softly. "But boring didn't ruin your life. Your decisions did." A small gasp sounded from someone nearby. Leslie swayed as if the words physically hit him. "And you know what?" I added. "I'm not angry anymore. I'm simply finished." He stared at me like he was trying to memorize everything, my posture, my expression, the quiet certainty in the way I stood. Maybe he finally saw what he'd lost. Not me specifically, but the version of me who tolerated everything. That woman no longer existed. I stepped back gently, pulling my arm out of his reach. "I hope you find the help you need, Leslie. Truly, but I'm not part of that journey." Then I turned to Daniel, who offered me a warm, steady look that didn't judge or question, just understood. Leslie stood there for a few long seconds, frozen, trembling. Then he left, head down, pushing through the crowd without looking back. The whispers followed him out. I didn't chase them. I didn't chase him. I just exhaled a long, controlled breath, a release, a closing. That night I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. For the first time in years, the chapter ended exactly how it should have. The strange thing about closure is that it doesn't feel like fireworks. It doesn't feel like victory or revenge or poetic justice. It feels like exhaling after holding your breath for too long. The morning after the party, I woke up expecting some kind of emotional hangover, shaking hands, spinning thoughts, a replay of every word I'd said to Leslie. But there was nothing. No dread, no knots, no guilt crawling under my skin. Just quiet. I made coffee, opened the blinds, and watched the sunlight spill across my floor like it hadn't in months. I stood there for a long moment, realizing I wasn't thinking about Leslie at all. I wasn't bracing for a message or replaying old wounds. The peace felt unfamiliar, like a room in my mind I'd forgotten existed. I had expected closure to feel like slamming a door. Instead, it felt like walking out of a room I should have left years ago. Life didn't magically transform overnight, but it did begin to unfold in ways that reminded me how much space Leslie had taken up and how much lighter everything felt without him. The changes were small but steady. I started cooking again real meals, instead of the rushed, exhausted dinners I used to make when I was carrying both of our emotional loads. I redecorated the apartment piece by piece, not out of spite, but because I wanted my home to match my insides open, calm, intentional. I bought a new lamp, rearranged the living room, repainted the hallway a soft sage green that instantly made the place feel like a deep breath. I started saying yes more often, but not to him or his chaos, yes to myself. Yes to dinners with coworkers. Yes to hikes with friends. Yes to early morning bakery runs. Yes to sleeping in. Yes to laughing without wondering if someone thought I was being too much or not enough. And Daniel, what began as quiet companionship slowly grew into something real. He never rushed me, never asked for more than I could give, never tried to fill the silence with noise or fix me with force. He simply showed up with consistency, with patience, with kindness. On our first actual date, we went to a bookshop cafe. He handed me a novel with a sticky note inside. For the next chapter, whenever you're ready. I didn't cry, but something loosened inside me. Something softened in a way I hadn't realized was still tight. He didn't replace Leslie. He didn't heal the wounds Leslie caused. He just proved those wounds didn't define me. With him, I could breathe. With him, I could laugh. With him, I didn't feel like a safety net. I felt like a partner. And that was enough. Weeks passed, then months. Every now and then, I'd hear whispers about Leslie through mutual friends, through offhand mentions. After that night at the bar, he moved back in with his parents for a while, trying to get his life back on track. Some said he was depressed. Some said he was angry at the world. Some said he finally understood what he lost. But I didn't go searching for updates. People who want to stay in your life don't make you hunt for crumbs. People who want to be part of your future don't sabotage your present. Leslie had been a chapter important, formative, painful, but a chapter nonetheless. And chapters end. One evening, months after the party, I found myself sitting on my balcony with a mug of tea, watching the city lights blink against the dusk. Daniel was inside, quietly reading on my couch. The air was warm. The street below hummed with life. I realized I felt grateful. Not for the betrayal, but for the clarity it forced, for the strength it uncovered, for the version of me that emerged through the ashes. The woman who tolerated excuses, forgave disrespect, and carried emotional weight for two people. That woman had done her best, but she wasn't who I wanted to be anymore. Instead, I had grown into someone who protected her peace, honored her needs, and refused to shrink herself to fit someone else's shortcomings. Someone who chose stability because it was meaningful, not because it was expected. Someone who knew love wasn't about chaos or fear of losing or chasing validation. Love was steadiness. Love was choosing and being chosen. Love was respect. As I sat there, legs tucked under me, city lights flickering softly, something settled inside me, a truth I had to live to understand. Sometimes losing someone isn't a loss. Sometimes it's the start of everything else. I took a slow sip of tea, breathed in the night air, and whispered a quiet thank you. Not to Leslie, but to myself for leaving when the door finally opened. Behind me, Daniel looked up from the couch and smiled gently. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, turning toward him. "I really am." And for the first time in a very long time, the words felt true.